What's up, guys?
Hello.
I am Joe.
I'm Roth.
And you visited the set of Mortal Engines recently, which I wanted to talk to you about because I have questions about your visit. You want to just jump into it? You talked to the cast, you talked to some creators, you saw some stuff.
We did the whole thing. This was about a year ago in New Zealand. And the way set visits work is you go while they're in production, and then they want you to talk about it closer to the release of the film. We're actually not that close to the release of the film, but there will be some marketing materials and things. I think a trailer is out right now today. As you were watching this, you can see the new trailer as well. But let's talk about what the movie's about.
Yeah, so in a way for you, this is time traveling. So I want to jump into this because I saw the teaser for Mortal Engines. I don't know the story or anything, so tell me.
Directed by Christian Rivers. It's written by Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, and Peter Jackson himself, based on the novel, the same name, by Philip Reeve. How do you like that?
Well,
business?
so the full team is there. That's the Lord of the Rings team.
So here it is. Millennia after much of the world was destroyed in a cataclysmic event known as the 60-Minute War. Civilization has adapted a new way of living. Gigantic moving cities have been mounted on wheels and motorized, and they now roam the earth, chasing and devouring one another for resources. Tom Natsworthy, a low-class citizen of the moving city of London, finds himself in a fight for his life after he encounters the fugitive Hester Shaw. Now, you can read all that on the Wikipedia, what I just told you. So we're going to talk about the things that I learned that you could not read on the Wikipedia. But basically, it's imagine if the cities were motorized. They're moving around. And we're London, so we're a really big city, and we go up and we basically chase down, it's called municipal Darwinism, survival of the fastest.
Okay.
And you like chase down a smaller city and devour it, take it in, take in its resources, take in its citizens, things like that. And then there are people in the world post the 60-Minute War who are not for tractionism, who are for rebuilding the earth and live on the land, but they're not in Europe. And so it's sort of the idea of the world's been destroyed. It's about 1700 years later, and they are trying to unpack and uncover and understand what humanity is based on what's left. And so they get a lot of stuff wrong about history.
Right.
Yeah.
The Game Boy was very important.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that we saw on the set, and one of the sets that we saw, was this huge library. Like, the librarians are very, very important because these are the people that are putting together the history and the narrative. And one of the things was, like, in the book, it would have been Mickey Mouse that they were worshiping as gods, that they believed were worshipped as gods. But because it's Universal putting out this movie, it's Minions. Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. History is written by the studio that's producing it.
Exactly.
All right, cool. I like it. So what all did you get to see?
So we saw that. We saw like basically an escape in a secret passageway. We saw some footage of a really cool fight sequence, actually. And we saw, like I said, we walked on that set, the library set, and had things like the evolution of cell phones and things like that, where it was trying to evoke the idea that everything in this world is archaeological. If everything was destroyed, which is basically, it probably would have been like a nuclear bomb, right? Everywhere, bombs. What would be left? And maybe they would be bronze statues and things like that, and more Victorian in tone, but there'd also be remnants of our time. And how do those things fit together? And that's sort of how the aesthetic of the world evolves.
Okay. Yeah. And they've said it's kind of, they didn't want to sort of overuse CGI, so it's not like just sort of a big like graphics fest, apparently. So I know you got to talk to a lot of people involved with the movie. Let's jump into that.
Yeah, so Peter Jackson is producing the film.
Right.
And he is obviously co-wrote it, and he's heavily involved. He talked about why he didn't ultimately direct it. So this started to be developed in 2008. And then he went and he did The Hobbit. Obviously, that took 5 years of his life. And so not only was he tired, but he,
as you would be, yeah.
as you do,
yeah.
After doing a project that scale, the rights were running out on this one, so they wanted to go ahead and make the movie. So he called up Christian Rivers, because for him, he was like, if I produce a movie, I'm able to then be involved in multiple other projects as well.
Right.
If I direct a movie, it takes my life for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So he wanted somebody else to direct it. So Christian Rivers, like I said, was a storyboard artist for him for years. This guy wrote him a fan letter very early on, the first couple of movies in Jackson's career.
Oh.
And he was a student, and he basically said, send him like a fan letter. You'll love this. Why I want you to do this. Fan letter with like drawings of like dragons and stuff.
Nice, solid.
I was like, hey, if you ever want me to come like do stuff for you, I can.
That's how all of my just normal letters, emails, all
of them
dragon art.
include
Yeah.
I knew that because all of my messages, like even in text form, where I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah,
I'm
what is
just,
this?
Like, I'm just impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So he wrote him this letter, and he said, if you ever want, I'll come work for you. So he ended up coming to work for him. He was a storyboard artist for years and years. He ended up winning, and then he moved into, obviously, that went into animatics and stuff like that, less drawn out. So he ended up winning an Oscar for Kong for overseeing the animation. And he also did second unit on The Hobbit. Now this is like his big directorial debut.
Okay.
So that's cool.
That's a really cool arc.
I know, right?
Right to your heroes.
Right to your heroes. You never know. So
And draw some dragons.
So that's why Jackson didn't want to direct, but he does. He talked a lot about the book series. It's Christian Rivers, the director's son's favorite book series, which adds a little special pressure. And Jackson said he really hopes they can get sequels because he thinks the story gets better and better and better, and he'd like to direct the last one should they go that far. You never know. It was interesting talking to Philippa Boyens about scripting it, and there's certain things that she wanted to hold back for a potential sequel, but then when the actors got on set, they were so good, she decided to play that arc, and I won't say what it is because it's kind of a spoiler between 2 of the main characters. But it's like it was like a Vader-like reveal.
Yeah, that's smart though. You know, I mean, play your story cards,
right?
Instead of just assuming that you've got 10 movies to tell a story. Yeah.
So Jackson also talked a little bit, and I wanted you to hear this one too, because I've been biting my tongue. We've been talking a lot about Peter Jackson and his old movies, including Heavenly Creatures, which I told him was one of my favorites. And would you ever go back and do small films? And I've not been able to say to Joe Starr, who wants him to do that he is planning on doing just that.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He said that it's one of the reasons he wanted to produce this one, although he is shooting some second unit and stuff. First of all, imagine Peter Jackson shooting
As your second unit guy, yeah.
Like when the second unit guy is not available, he'll go, and he also camera operates. And
That's kind of awesome, though.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of directors at his level of success that would sort of put on the working boots and do that.
Yeah, he's like, I love it. I get to go just like for here and there and just bring in a third camera. And I think it's fun for him.
Yeah.
But he said
he's like the movie's uncle, and he gets to come in and he gets to mess with the kids and then leave consequence free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Hugo Weaving said he's like a god. It's like the benevolent god there in Wellington. Like you'll just hear him come over the loudspeakers. What does God Daddy want? But yeah, he'll go and do that, and I think he's having fun. But he said that one of the reasons he wanted to produce was to have time to write other stories, and he wants to do some smaller films, really centered on New Zealand, like little Kiwi films.
That's really cool, because I know you and I are both really big fans of Peter Jackson's early stuff.
Yeah.
And I hope it gets sort of just weird and gory again.
Me
I'm excited
too.
about that.
We asked if they would involve zombies, and he said, maybe.
Which is always a yes to me. Well, okay, you brought up Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the cast, because I know you talked to a few people.
Yes. So Hugo Weaving and Stephen Lang are probably and pointedly the most known names. So Stephen Lang was shooting Avatar 345, is that it? At the same time, he was kind of going back and forth. He plays this character called Shrike, an ancient undead cyborg warrior.
Okay.
Yeah, and he actually, like, I don't know if it was just because we saw his lair, which was full of terrifying dolls and clowns, that I think he's the most interesting character. But anyway, long story endless, they cast the 2 leads, the romantic love story. They're like, it's a political adventure love story action. I'm like, great.
That is in no way dystopian.
Relative unknowns for that, because they wanted really fresh faces. So that's who he plays. And it's he talked a lot about basically, like, he's obviously worked with actors that were doing motion capture, and now he's doing it himself. And he's like, yeah, most actors won't admit that every performance is very collaborative. And this is like the height of that. It's the most collaborative.
You're working with animators. You're working with the guys that are photographing you doing the mocap. That's interesting.
Yeah. So he that character seems really fascinating to me. And then Hugo Weaving plays Thaddeus Valentine, which
is a dope name.
That's a dope name.
I love so much hearing information about a film with like no context for me, you know, just like that guy is an ancient cyborg warrior. This is Thaddeus Valentine. And you're like, okay.
He's Thaddeus Valentine, so he's the head of the Guild of Historians. So he's very high up in London.
Okay.
And then it just becomes basically, it's like a game. I don't want to give too much away for those who haven't seen the book. So it's just like a game of intrigue between her, who's kind of like a rebel, and him, who's in the hierarchy of London, and the people that are tractionists and anti-tractionists. And this kid, Tom, gets wrapped up in the middle of all of it. But he basically talked about the sets as well and like how elaborate they were. And he's like, yeah, in the first year of Lord of the Rings, it was like fully built with like running water. And then he's like, and then the next year was smaller. And then the next year was like little pieces with lots of green screen.
Yeah.
So this is some combination of the above. And there's an actress who's a singer-songwriter also called Ji-Hae. And we saw an awesome fight sequence with her that I think Joe Starr will enjoy.
Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'm listening. Well, I mean, they've got their Star Wars pinned down in that little trifecta they're doing, you know, with Weaving and Lang sort of doing the Alec Guinness role with the unknown. So that's really cool. So when let's go through just the sort of the rough and tumble, like when, where.
What? Why? So it's coming out December 14th.
Let's do our journalisms.
Let's do the journalisms. December 14th, 2018. So this Christmas?
Yep.
Be a Christmas family movie. I gotta say, like, it was a really interesting set visit because I liked a lot of what I saw. I love that story about that relationship and like, oh, how the worm has turned, right? Because when, you know, his entire career, Christian's job was to support the vision of Peter Jackson. And he calls the director like the artistic dictator, you know? And then now it's Jackson's job to support his vision. And I talked about like, how is that working out with you guys? And he said that, you know, it was really interesting because if Peter Jackson's really dug in on something, he can back it up. And if he can't, he'll let it go.
Okay.
But that's got to be like working for your dad. You know
yeah, it's got to be a little, and for Jackson, it's got to be a little like, you know, bird leaving the nest a little bit. And now I can like guide here or there, but otherwise I'm kind of hands off. And this is
your thing. I do think that the story that they're trying to tell is more of an harkening back to like the big blockbusters where there were real stories and characters. And everybody's flipping their lid about the performance of the lead, who from what I saw is really good. So like I will say like the one thing that gave me pause on the set was the Minions, just because I just felt weird to have those included. But there were other elements that if this comes together in the way that I can tell they really want it to, I think it could be a really cool kind of movie that we don't see very often, in that yes, it's an adaptation, but it's also kind of a unique story.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting sell because I saw the teaser. That's all I've seen. I don't know the books. And, you know, seeing that, it's so much information to take in a 20-second teaser. Like, here is a giant London on wheels, and I think it's eating someone and what's happening. So, yeah, it's a big sell. But I think, you know, if there's something behind it, that heart, and there's really something behind it driving it, then, yeah, that sounds like a cool movie.
Star Wars meets Harry Potter meets Mad Max.
Look, you went to New Zealand. I don't want to leave without talking about this. Did you go to certain? Did you go see Hobbiton?
I went to Hobbiton. Yeah. Yes, and it was awesome and amazing. It was so much fun. So we were they were shooting in Wellington, and then Auckland, we stopped in Auckland, and then you take a plane back to the US. So I just stopped in Auckland for a couple of days.
Sure.
And I went to Hobbiton, and I took a tour on a bus. They basically drive you from Auckland and then drive you through the countryside into Hobbiton. You guys, It was torrentially pouring rain, ridiculous, just crazy, ridiculous rain pour. My boots broke. I did not care. It was 100% magical. It was like we saw you got to go inside. Like these are so fully built and constructed. You got to go have a little brew. And you had lunch, and it was just amazing, amazing, amazing. And then to top it off, on the drive back, it was like the most New Zealand moment ever. He put on Hunt for the Wilder People in the bus, and then the sun came out, and we had to stop for a whole herd of sheep. So it was
That's
wonderful.
a very New Zealand trip. Well, I am so excited that the Shire was not scoured for you, and I'm glad you had a fun time on the set visit.
I had a fun time on the set visit, and I hope you guys will check out. I think there's a trailer right now. We'll talk about it in SJU.
Yep.
Honestly, I want to support movies that are trying to do something different and that are clearly supporting the vision of a director, and this is. So in that sense, I am completely optimistic and hopeful that we will end up with a cool film, maybe a fun family film.
We'll see, guys.
We'll see.
Let us know what you think. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you later. Bye.